This video may contain triggers to anyone struggling with an eating disorder. Please watch at your own discretion. In February 1911, two British sisters in their 30s, Claire and Dora Williamson, checked into a sanitarium named Wilderness Heights. The pair were very wealthy and well-travelled, but they were worrywarts. Following new medicine and natural healing, they travelled from Britain to try out Dr. Linda Hazzard's fasting cure. There wasn't anything too serious wrong with them. Dora had swollen glands and rheumatic pains, while Claire had a dropped uterus. They had given up wearing corsets and eating meat, and had been reading Hazzard's book, Fasting for the Cure of Disease. Once there, Hazzard put the sisters on a diet of tomato broth. Only it wasn't really a broth. It was a tomato boiled in water and then removed, and then they were given just the hot water. They were also allowed sips of orange juice. Hazzard kept telling them it would be one more day until they started to feel the benefits. She also gave them osteopathic treatments and had their nurses give them hour-long enemas, which is fluid injections to empty the bowel. They dropped under 70 pounds, which is 5 stone or 31 kilos, and fainted constantly, unable to walk and having to be carried. When the sanitarium was ready, they had to be carried out and transported in ambulances, with Dora's head being covered in bandages to hide her skull-like appearance. They stayed in an apartment as the sanitarium was not ready. Hazzard was incredibly interested in their money, asking about their jewels, wills, and if they needed any help with their property and money. The sisters were separated and hadn't told anyone where they were going. Claire became desperate and sent a cable to their childhood nurse, saying, "Come SS Marama, May 8th, first class, Claire." The nurse arrived. She was greeted by Hazzard's husband, Samuel, who informed her Claire had just died. Hazzard did not blame the 80 days of starvation, but instead medicine she'd been given in childhood had shrunk her organs and caused cirrhosis of the liver. Margaret Conway, the nurse, went to see Dora, who weighed just 50 pounds. She wanted her to leave, but Dora refused, so she sneaked rice and cream into her broths, but she knew this wouldn't be enough. He sent a cable to the sisters' uncle, John Herbert, who came straight away. He had to pay almost $1,000 to the Hazards to release her. Linda had made herself the executor of Claire's estate and Dora's guardian for life, as well as Samuel having her power of attorney. They also stole Claire's clothes and $6,000 of the sisters' jewels. C.E. Lucien Agassiz, a British vice consul in Tacoma, heard about this case and took immediate action. He freed Dora from Hazzard's guardianship and set up a case against Linda. This case opened up her dark past that Dora and Claire were unaware of. Linda was born in Carver County, Minnesota in 1867. When she was 18, she married and had 2 children, but abandoned this family in 1898 to follow her career in Minneapolis. It's believed this is where she killed her first patient in 1902. The coroner determined the cause of death as starvation and tried to have Linda prosecuted, but because she wasn't licensed to practice medicine, she wasn't held accountable. He then married Samuel, who had been fired from the military for misappropriating army funds. He had also been married twice before without divorce, so spent 2 years in prison for bigotry after marrying Linda. Once he got out in 1906, the pair moved to Seattle. Lots of locals loved Linda's way of thinking, so it wasn't difficult for her to find victims. First victim here was 38-year-old Daisy Maud Haglund, who was from Norway. She died on the 26th of February 1908 after a 50-day fast. She also killed an Ida Wilcox in 1908, Blanche B. Tyndall and Viola Heaton in 1909, and Mrs. Maud Whitney in 1910, and Earl Edward Erdman in 1911. When Erdman died, the Seattle Daily Times headlined it as "Woman MD, quotes, kills another patient." He then went on to kill a Frank Southard and an Ivan Flux. When Ivan died after 53 days of fasting, Hazzard had taken control of his finances and told his family he died with only $70 to his name. Authorities tried to step in, as he died weighing less than 100 pounds. However, the health director said as Hazzard was now licensed and the participants were willing, he couldn't intervene. But he did say he would step in if she started to treat children. All of her patients would have starvation listed as their cause of death, unless Linda did the autopsy herself. In 1909, 26-year-old Eugene Stanley Wakelin's body was found on the Hazzard's property with a bullet in his head. It was assumed he had killed himself, but it was later revealed that the Hazards shot him because he was not as wealthy as they originally thought. After the sisters' tragic experience, Linda was arrested on the 15th of August 1911 for the first-degree murder of Claire. The following January, servants and nurses testified against Linda, but she believed it was an attack on her for being a woman practicing alternative medicine. The jury found her guilty of manslaughter, and she was sentenced to 2 to 20 years of hard labour at the penitentiary in Walla Walla, as well as revoking her licence. But she was pardoned after just a year and a half, as long as she left the country. Claire and Samuel relocated to New Zealand, where she presented as a physician, dietitian and osteopath, as well as publishing another book. She gained such popularity that she was allowed to return to the States, where she set up an even bigger sanitarium in Olara, where she continued to starve people. She called it a school of health since she no longer had her licence, and it included an autopsy room in the basement. She was fined $100 for starving a Washington farmer during this time. The sanitarium burnt down in 1935, and Linda died 3 years later after feeling unwell and deciding to fast herself, aged 70. The total amount of murders is unknown, but it is believed she killed at least a dozen people. What do you think of this case? Do you think Linda was well aware of what she was doing, or was she just so invested in her research she truly believed she was helping these people? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.